It's punchy kicky time again, and I am so fortunate. In fact, it was kind of mind-blowing looking at this gentleman's CV because it took me back to childhood days, if I could say that. Now I'm giving away a bit of my age. I'm talking about a gentleman who he was part of Team South Africa in Camel Trophy Borneo. He was a Mr. South Africa finalist back in 1996. He was part of the MTN Gladiators. Now, I'm going to hazard a guess that 90% of fighters today, the young fighters, know nothing about Camel Trophy and MTN Gladiators. We're going to talk a little bit about that in just a minute. He's an internationally qualified bodyguard, retired professional boxer, certified Khan 12 teacher in Muay Thai, certified Muay Thai judge and referee, IMAF certified coach, and IMAF brown belt in MMA. Many of his students have gone on to national, let's call it national level in boxing, K1, MMA, and Muay Thai. He's based in Durban, and that's probably the pricey version of his CV. Clint Walters, thanks so much for joining me today. Like I said, reading this, dude, it was like shit. Like watching Noddy again. It was like took me back to childhood days. Man, I mean, a lot of this was part of my upbringing. It's great to chat to you, and thank you so much for your time.
Oh, only a pleasure. Thanks, man.
I hope I did or what I've summarized, that portion of your life. I hope I did it justice, and hopefully we're going to talk a little bit about it.
I've been around the block. Let's just put it that way. I've been around the block for a while, so there's a lot of things I've had a chance to do. And I think I've been lucky to be able to do a lot of them. So yeah, I've had a good life so far.
So very, very quickly, Camel Trophy, Borneo, MTN Gladiators. Those two are, I suppose, for most 30 or late 30s, 40-something guys in this country, those are defining times, defining events in our upbringing. Their impact on you and the launch pad that they gave you in your career.
Well, you know, I think I've always just been one of those guys that when I see something and I want to do it, I make a plan, and I like, you know, like people say, chase your goals, and it's such an easy thing to say, but you know, sometimes you've got to look for a way to get there. You've got to, you know, it doesn't just land in your lap. And I look back a while ago and I thought to myself, shit, you know, I've actually done quite a lot in my life. And I always used to think of myself as quite a lazy person. But then if you look at the things that I've done, and, you know, like when I chill, I like to chill. But then I look at the things that I've done and I realize I'm not as lazy as what I think I am. I just, you know, I get ideas and I go like, fuck, I want to do that. And I go and I do everything in my power and I do it. And like Camel Trophy, for example, was totally out of my wheelhouse. I mean, I was a pro rugby player at the time. I was playing for EP, just got a contract to go to the Bulls. I just moved up to the Bulls and I made the final selections. Then I had to go do my final selections for Camel Trophy, made the SA team to go to Seville, Spain first. But then after I made the team, the Bulls rugby team wouldn't allow me to go. So they pulled in on their contract and they said, sorry, you have to play rugby, you can't go. So I had to withdraw from the team. But yeah, that was it. My little dabble into Camel Trophy, which was an awesome experience. I mean, the final trials were insane. We seriously suffered. Trying to think what you can compare Camel Trophy to nowadays. It's probably like Survivor, like a softer version of Survivor, you could say, but with 4x4s. Traveling through the jungle, through the mud, you know, running through the bush, surviving, you know, like stuff like that. So it was good fun, quite an experience.
And MTN Gladiators, obviously that's by far more a glitzy and glamorous version probably of Camel Trophy. No mud, no Land Rovers, preset up studios and lots of makeup.
Yeah, so obviously because of my rugby career, I've always been sporty. I can play any sport. There's nothing that I can't do. Well, at an average level, I'm like a jack of all trades, master of none. But I actually went and I did the trials to be a competitor, and then I kind of just killed everybody in the trials. So they just said, well, sorry, we're not going to allow you to be a competitor. So you either choose between being a gladiator or you can't compete at all. So I was like, oh, okay, shit, I'll be a gladiator. And that's basically how it
Hold
happened.
on a second. Were they scared that you were going to destroy their gladiators?
Well, they had some of the gladiators were obviously doing trials as well, guys that were competing as gladiators. So I was just taking everybody out, and they were like, "What a fuck!" So I was just taking everybody out. So they said, "No. Sorry, you've got one choice. You're going to be a gladiator or nothing." So I was like, "Fuck, well, you're not really giving me a choice." So then I just did gladiators, and that was also fun. We also got screwed in that we didn't really get paid what we should have got paid. But it was a good experience. It was, it exposed me to the fame side of South Africa, and it's one thing I realized. I don't like attention. I'm not someone who likes the spotlight much. I like what I do. When I do what I do it because I love it. I don't do it because I want to be known for what I'm doing. Like, it's just, and I think that's what that taught me is, everybody wants to be famous until you actually become famous. And it's not that that much fun. That was also a good experience. I think, I had a shitty life upbringing before that. And then you get thrown into this, this different lifestyle. And you what's nice is you have that contrast of where you come from, where you've been, and then you kind of come to the conclusion, I don't want to be here, I don't want to be here. I want to kind of be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And so I was fortunate enough to kind of send my life in that direction. I could have carried on playing rugby, but I don't think I'd be where I am now. I think I'd have a lot more injuries as well. I'm happy where I am. My journey's still going. I'm still busy with a lot of things. There's lots of things I'm busy doing.
Well, clearly we can see that. Obviously, in terms of your fight credentials, they speak for themselves. But I suppose now, in terms of your life, come full circle. It's now about giving back to the athletes, training those youngsters. As I've seen a lot of stuff on social media, everything about building the youngsters from bottom up and turning them into national and hopefully international champions.
100%. Yeah, so it's not stuff I really like to talk about. I've actually never spoken about it. Like, nobody really knows that I'm doing this. But I've set up an NPO through my gym. I've got 2 people that are doing it well, that are on my board of directors, basically, which is my son, and then Tabani Ndebela, who fights out of my gym, who's one of my black fighters, Dr. Danger. You'll probably know him from EFC. So he's involved with me, and my focus with this is to try and raise money to develop. So this is basically, I don't agree with the way shit's going on with the actual people that should be doing it. So I've just taken it upon myself to do it on my own. I've implemented my own structures. I've got my own way of doing it. I've set up my NPO. I've already got one guy that I've brought in, Kaya. I don't know if you've seen. I posted a couple of videos of him.
Yep.
He started with me about 1.5 years ago. So far he's 4-0. So my aim, and it's a slow process because I want to do it properly and I want to get the right systems in place. And obviously everything costs money. You've got a gear and equipment. My aim is to get a little house and put the guys up, to really help them get work. Currently, I actually haven't even told Kaya this. I'm currently busy raising money for him to do his personal trainer's course so that he can qualify as a trainer, so that he understands anatomy, physiology. So he's, even we all know what happens with a fight career. 1 minute you're fighting, the next minute you can't fight anymore, and everything gets taken away. So it's I'm trying to help him to become a fighter, but in the same breath, I want him to become a good coach and eventually maybe open his own gym. I want him to be able to train people, understand the fitness and conditioning and the weight training side as well. I'm busy with that at the moment as well. And then from then on, it's just about basically growing that. I want to get like 10, maybe 15 development fighters in from the townships, get them out of I want to give them options. They might not be the best fighters, but from that, I want to see if I can find coaches, guys that can hold pads, that can go and work in gyms and actually teach boxing, teach Muay Thai. I want to be able to grade them in their cons, to bring them up so that eventually one day they can go to Thailand and get their con grading as well, their con 12 or con 10 or whatever. So that's what I've been doing on the side. Obviously, everything COVID slammed it quite hard. But I've just been going on and carrying on with Kaya. And he's, dude, this dude is got incredible work ethic. Just works like a demon, and he's just such a humble. He comes from Ulindi, I can't even explain the journey this dude's put, and I'm just so proud of him. Like he really is, in the time that he's come and where he's come from, and it's because of him and his brother that I actually got this idea. And I was like, you know what? If you rely on other people to fucking, they've got their ways of doing it, and I totally disagree with the way that they do it. So might as well just do it yourself. And so that's basically what I'm trying to do.
Well, Clint, if I was wearing a hat, I'd tip my hat to you. I mean, that is fantastic. We're not seeing enough of that. I know there are a couple other guys doing some stuff, and much like you, a lot of it's being done under the radar, unfortunately. Too many of these stories are going untold, and I'm actually grateful and thank you for sharing that story with me and for those that are gonna watch this. I want to come back to something that you've just said. In fact, you've mentioned it on 2 occasions. Those guys that are doing it that shouldn't be doing it this way, or that could be doing it better. I mean, I look at what you're involved with. I mean, let's start with Muay Thai. I mean, Muay Thai in this country consists of, at my understanding right now, 2 separate organizations that are running Muay Thai or looking after Muay Thai in South Africa. Still lots of politics taking place within the Muay Thai space. That's obviously,
No, just on that politics part. So to give you an example, just the other day, myself and Nick Radley are co-presidents of SAMO, South African Muay Thai Organization.
Yeah.
And just the other day, we had one of the gyms, or a couple of people ask us, listen, there's the other competing organization is sanctioning fights. Are we allowed to compete with that sanctioning body? And I said, and so Nick sent me an email. The guys are asking me, what do we say? I was like, 100%. Of course they can. It's about the fighters. This is not about you and me and South African Muay Thai organization. It's about Muay Thai. It's not about our organization versus their organization. It's about letting the fighters fight. That's what it's about. Giving them as much opportunity to compete as possible. That's all that matters. It's about growing the sport. It's not about my organization is better than yours, or we run it better than you, or then you don't love the sport, because then you're just trying to be power hungry. You're trying to keep everything to yourself. If you love the sport, you're going to allow anybody to compete anywhere. It's about the more. So, for example, if it's like we've got GAMA and we've got RMAF. So if RMAF is really about MMA, they will allow fighters to compete with GAMA, because there's limited opportunities. You and I know there's so few fights happening.
Yeah.
And one might want to sanction with one, and one might want to sanction with the other. That's not the fighter's problem. It's a gym's decision what they want to do. The fighters should be allowed to fight wherever they are, as long as the gym's paying the sanctioning fees and they affiliated. That's all that matters. Nothing else matters. It's not about the organization. It's not about me trying to undercut you or be better than you. You know what? Fighters need more opportunities. That's it. That is it. I don't think it goes further than that. It's about the sport. It's not about the organization.
Let's talk about that specifically, because you're 100% right. I mean, you were part of the management team 2019 IMF World Champs. We took a young crop of athletes to that World Championships. In fact, if I look at the crop of athletes that we've taken to the IMF World Championships, would it be a fair assessment to say, for the most part, we take and regularly take very, very inexperienced athletes to compete on the highest stages?
100%. And this is my argument. Okay, so I come from a history of competing at provincial and like top provincial level. And to get your EP colors, you've got to be the best in your province. To get your Northern Transvaal colors, you've got to be the best in your province. To be your SA colors, you've got to be the best in your country. It is an achievement. It is a feather in your cap. It was an award for being exceptional. Okay. For me, when we did the selection for the national team to go to Worlds, it was not a give everybody a chance to compete mentality. That's not what it's about. It is about picking the best team that can represent your country to the fullest, because there's only so many coaches that are going with. To have a squad of 20, 30 guys going to Worlds, how do you prep 20, 30 guys? Some are in Joburg, some are in Durban. It's almost impossible. If you've got a small exclusive, like the best of the best, a 10-man team of the best fighters, you can seriously focus your training. Because every fighter, and this is the problem, every single fighter that competes is different. Some are grappling dominant, some are stand-up dominant, some are physically strong, some can move, some can't move, some have got good head movement. So every fighter needs to work on specific things. So coaches need to be able to work on some weaknesses and some strengths, and you've got to be able to direct the energy in the right place. So when you've got 29, 30 guys, you know, a squad going towards, some of them, and when I say the skill sets, and no disrespect to the fighters, they're all amateurs at the end of the day, and this is not knocking them. I'm just talking about, we're talking about international level fighters here. When you're going to compete against Russia, Bahrain, Kazakhstan,
Sweden,
Sweden, I mean, USA, doesn't really make a difference. You're competing against the best amateurs from that country. They don't take every Tom, Dick, and Harry so that they can build experience. That's not what they do. They take the best team. And when you're doing that, your development is going to be better because you can put so much more energy into them. Then you have the argument that goes, yes, but they need it so they can experience it. So next year they've got 100%. That's not when it comes to like international. You know what? Everybody's got to pay their way. You've got accommodation. You've got X amount of coaches that's got to deal with everything that's going on. Last year was the first time the coaching setup was the way that it was. And it backfired badly. There was 4 coaches, 3 got along, 1 didn't get along. We had proper fallouts with one of the coaches, and eventually all of us wanted to resign. We're like, fuck this. We don't want to be a part of this. We're not putting up with the shit. We had 3 situations where we had to call the other coach in. We spoke to the relevant people, and they were like, well, at the time when JD and Andries resigned, I was also going to resign, and I was like, actually, you know what? I actually can't leave the team with this dude. I can't. I just can't do that to them. So I went and I focused and I put my head down, and I was like, guys, I'm going to stay on because I was assistant head coach. So I'm going to stay on. And then eventually I convinced JD and Andries to come back, and I said to them, listen, you cannot leave this team in this dude's hands. You just can't. Now, what happened was, we obviously ostracized. We already had our backups against them. I mean, if there was a lot of things that went on. I'm not going to get into name calling. It's a long story. But we already had a fallout. So in a way, we just wanted nothing to do with him, because, you know, we just kept getting second guessed. So in a democracy, it's 4 people voting, 3 beats 1, obviously every single time. But it kept on getting thrown in his face. Well, he wants this. Then he would run to someone, and they'd all have and then they'd shit on our heads. Oh, but you guys want to. We're like, well, how the fuck does this work? What happened to we select the team? You know, it was a lot of things happening. But anyway, so what ended up happening is we actually wanted nothing to do with him. And he became like the fighter's little buddy. He was with them all the time because we didn't want to be around at all. It was just a shitty situation. Not one of us wanted to be in that position where there was a shitty vibe, but we tried to make the best of it. Then, you know, we'd have team meetings, we'd agree on something, and then he would just change it. And then he wouldn't tell us that he's changed it. And then we look like idiots when we don't rock up at whatever's been arranged, because he's gone and changed the times of the fighters and we don't know about it. So this has been we had this big discussion between all of us, and a lot of people popped up. But what a lot of people don't know is that when we had our coaches meetings, obviously decisions were made in the coaches meeting, and we agreed on times, we agreed on things that had to be done and didn't have to be done. And it was just, you know, he just ended up doing his own thing. And so it started getting to a point where it was just like a free for all. So last year was a total step up. And I don't think that's, that should never happen again. At the end of the day, the fighters suffer. The whole vibe, energy, everything just didn't go the way it should have gone.
So Clint, I mean, a lot of things you've said there. I mean, we could probably unpack that for another hour just alone. But I mean, that kind of vibe that gets created, obviously in an event, at an event, has a ripple effect right the way through the camp. So those fighters feel it, they get to understand it. They're not going in there clear of mind, clear of heart. There's so much shit going on in the background that they honestly cannot compete to their very best. And let's be brutally honest, we weren't taking our best of our best to be able to successfully compete against the world's best. So now you've got subpar athletes, no disrespect to the athletes, but I'm talking in relation to international level, subpar athletes going to compete who in themselves are not 100% committed to stepping into that cage. I think we all understand what the outcome is going to be. It's going to be a snot club, and a very quick one at that.
Yeah, the thing is, and ironically, the guys performed really, really well, all things considered.
Yeah.
There were a lot of fights where the guys fought top level guys, and they really did well. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like some of them did a lot better than we thought they would. They got in there and they fought with a lot of heart, a lot of determination. But at the end of the day, yes, they still lost, and we were like super proud of the way they performed. Right?
Absolutely.
And I mean, seriously, there were some crazy opponents that we thought they were going to get mauled, and the guys really seriously put on a good show. But the thing is, once again, when you're going to an event like that, we had a lot of time to prepare. We had, we basically spent a year with the guys. What is it? About 9. My timeline's a bit warped, but we spent a lot of time working with the guys in Durban, in Joburg. They would come down here. The guys went up there, and we had to come up with a training system that made sense going to Worlds. And the rules that they use at Worlds, the way they score fights, the way fights are fought, and the way fights are fought over there is very different to normal MMA because it's sports MMA.
Yes,
you're fighting every single day. You need to save yourself and not take damage. So what happens is the Russians just shoot, the Bahrainians, all the rest, they just shoot, they take you down, they lie on top of you for the round, they do a little bit of work, and the ref never stands you up. And that's just how the game plan works there. So you need to have the right fighters going for that style of fighting. So in the same breath, you've got to be aware of what you're facing when you get there. They drive you up against the cage. We spent basically the whole year teaching the guys how to work on the cage, how to scramble. I brought Richie down to Durban. I brought Richie Kwan down. I'm originally from FFM. So Richie's one of my really, really good friends. Probably he's like my mentor. I've worked with him for years, and I asked him, and he came down free of charge. I just paid for his air tickets. He came down and he spent 3 days with us down in 2 days down in Durban with us. Worked with the whole national team, working cage game, and just going through fundamentals and going through how the Russians work and blah blah blah. So we put a lot of effort and time into educating them on what they're going to be facing. A lot of the guys don't have a good wrestling base. They've got a very much a jiu-jitsu base. So they'll comfortably fall on their back and just lie on their back and think they can submit someone, but you lose the fight. You go to RMF Worlds, you lose. Doesn't matter, you lying on your back, you're never getting up. Those Russians are not going to let you go.
Yep.
So we spent all that time teaching the guys how to scramble, teaching them how to walk the cage, teaching them those fundamentals, because at the end of the day, you cannot teach that in a month or 2 months. That's months. It's a whole separate skill set that needs to be taught. And we spent hours upon hours upon hours, and the guys showed massive improvement. It really made a big difference. But at the end of the day, I honestly feel if we went with a select squad that had a good all-round, some of the guys have got atrocious stand-up, decent jiu-jitsu, average wrestling. Some of the guys have got amazing stand-up, average jiu-jitsu, shitty wrestling. But you've got to, when you select a team, you've got to look at the guys that are going to perform best and that are going to, because even that experience, those 10 that go over are going to come back more experienced, and they can pass on that experience to the guys that are young. You don't have to take 26, 30 people to Worlds to give them that kind of experience. It's the 10 that come back and pass that experience on. because it just makes it easier when coaches are trying to teach and you're trying to evolve people in a short period of time. You can't be dealing with guys that have got 1 fight or 2 fights that are beginners, basically, in the game, and now you're trying to prep them for world. Also, big match temperament. When they get there, how they're going to perform under the big stage.
Yeah.
It's all those things that come into play.
So, Clint, you talk about the experience of the athletes and the building that experience, but surely that also works for the coaches and the coaching staff, because we've taken a team across to worlds on a handful of occasions. We consistently have not had a consistent team of management, of coaches going across. There's learnings being picked up and had by every single one of those individuals that's gone across as a let's call it as the management component of the team. I get the distinct impression that the learnings you picked up, the learnings all the previous guys, the Jan Ritzers have picked up, etc., I don't get the sense that that's been tapped into. So it's almost like we want the athletes to go over, get the experience and impart that knowledge. But when the coaches go over, pick up that experience, when they come back, fuck them. We don't want their knowledge because they don't know what we now know. Am I wrong in that assumption, or is that spot on?
But that's my argument. That's what I was saying early on, is like, how do you expect to develop the sport if you're not allowing the people that have the experience? And I actually cannot wait for the people that are going to be running things now to actually do JD's job. Like I don't think people realize, everybody thinks it's just go to Bahrain and it's just coaching and it's all the fun stuff. And, you're just teaching fighters and you're traveling. Like, I remember, he would be so stressed out. He'd call me, I remember the one night, because, and they don't fuck around. Like, if your payments aren't done, 20% penalty. Your payment's not done, 40% penalty. If it's not done on time, there's no negotiation, there's no half, there's no nothing. Then who sits with us? They're phoning JD in the middle of the night. Clint, please, can you organize, the money for this guy, get hold of this guy. Then I'm on my phone, 11 o'clock at night, trying to phone fighters and parents, trying to collect money. And that's the other thing, is we are not babysitters. This is not an under-19 rugby team that you're taking over. These are adults. There's one junior that came across with us. You're dealing with adults, okay? And you need to realize that shit needs to get done when they need to get done. You can't rely on us to pay. We've had our childhood, and this is the thing. And I think a lot of guys they're adults. They're 9, 20, 21, 22, 23. We cannot hold your hand. We cannot remind you 5, 10, 15 times to send this letter, make this payment, get this done. I ended up paying out of my own pockets. I ended up paying for 3 guys so that they didn't have a double fine. And then I had to get the money back. And then I had to fight to get the money back with people. Then it was, a big rigmarole. But I did it so that these guys could go to wars. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been allowed to go. But I'm the big arsehole because there was things that happened over there. But I did everything in my power to make sure everybody could go. And JD was, I still said that. I was like, you don't realize what happens behind the scenes. I actually cannot wait for whoever takes over to realize how much work goes into getting an MMA team to work. Honestly, people think they don't realize to deal with, to get RMF, to get the documentation, to get your payments, to get all that shit done is massive. And then the time difference. And then you're getting the time differences.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, I'm actually happy for JD, to be honest. I think it's a massive load off his shoulders. And I think it's about time other people realize what goes on behind the scenes. People don't realize until it's time for them to do the shit.
Okay, let's fast track, because I suppose we could spend another 45 minutes just talking about those kind of experiences. Let's fast track to this year. COVID's had a disastrous impact on sports, let's call it per se. It's had an even deeper impact on combat sports in this country. Looking at the current trials season, KwaZulu-Natal have held their trials. Those are now done and dusted. You were there?
No, not a chance.
No,
I don't go to anything in MMA. I avoid the people like the plague. there's maybe 2-3 people that I'll talk to with regards to MMA. But when it comes to KZN, I'm like the lone wolf. I do my own thing. I don't care about the politics. I don't care about the people involved. Like, you know how hard it was me to even pay my sanctioning fees. I was like, I've got to find another way to do this because I actually do not want to be a part of this. I have no interest in being a part of the politics, but you get backed into a corner because my fighters need to compete.
Yeah.
So if you don't pay if you don't pay, your fighters can't compete at trials. So you get backed into a corner. We don't even know what events can be held. So anyway, last minute I just said, you know what? Pay the fucking money. Here's my money. Let my fighters fight and deal with it. Because I can't, my issues with them is my issues with them. I can't let my fighters suffer because I've got issues with them.
Yeah.
And it's just shitty because before, and this was my biggest thing. When I got asked to assist with the KZN team, national team, Justin asked me to help. I was like, no problem. Just as a coach, I was like, cool, I'll help out with a stand-up, no problem. And then go to Joburg with him. And remember, it costs us money.
Yeah.
I have to pay my own tickets. I have to pay my own accommodation, my own food. Bahrain wasn't paid for. It cost me over 36,000 Rand, basically in total to go there. But that's beside the point. So when I got involved, I didn't want to get involved. I helped out with the KZN team, and then JD approached me. He's like, will you be involved with the national team as a coach? And I was like, JD, said, I don't want to get involved in politics. I fucking hate politics. I was like, that is my pet hate in life. He said, I am a coach. I love coaching. And I don't want shit to get in the way. And he was like, don't worry, there will be no politics. There will be no issues.
Exactly. Famous last words.
Dude, and you can ask him about this. He's like, I got dragged into the deepest of politics. And hey, listen, don't get me wrong. I did bring a little bit on myself. I went out one night for this, I think it was the second night. I went out with one of the guys from Bahrain. We had a bit of a piss up, got home. I still did everything I was supposed to do. Yes, I went out, I had a couple of drinks, 100%. Was never told I'm not allowed to drink. I'm just not allowed to drink in national uniform. That's all. And came back at about 3:00 in the morning. I wasn't at the weigh-ins, so everybody had an issue with that, but I wasn't supposed to be at the weigh-ins because the coaches were rotating. So there was a whole bunch of shit that happened. But, like I said, the politics after I came back. So before I was dragged into the coaching thing, I was friends with everybody. I had no issues with anyone. Now I am like, I literally, when I see certain people, I want to literally knock them the fuck out. But I'm like, Usa, you know what? Just keep yourself. Just ignore everybody, smile, be happy. Just avoid them as much as you can. That's simple.
Okay, well then on that point, Clint, let me ask you one final question. Looking at what's coming out of KwaZulu-Natal right now, specifically your area, let's call it your area of control, what you're seeing coming from the development side, coming out of the suburbs, what is your thoughts, your views on MMA, combat sports? I mean, obviously, I'm talking here about the boxing, the K1, the Muay Thai, and the MMA. Your thoughts on the future of fight sports as you see it in your neck of the woods?
I just think there needs to be way more developments and not just development, just getting guys in and teaching them and thinking that you're going to teach them to train or develop the sport of MMA. It's a very narrow-minded approach to anything. You've got to have training systems. You've got to have structures in place to assist the guys. A lot of the guys that we want to develop don't have anything. Like even getting to training is hard. So you've logistically you've got to put a lot more in than just offering training. You've got to look at accommodation. You've got to look. A lot needs to go into it. And I know in this sport, in any of the combat sports, there's no money, and nobody wants to give money unless they can make money. So you see, my approach at the moment is like Kaya is my billboard. What I've done with Kaya in the last 2 years is, and I'm telling you now, Kaya will win a title if COVID fixes up this year. By the end of this year, he'll have a title. I know for a fact he will. And just that alone in 2 years. And when I say he walked into my gym and he couldn't punch, couldn't kick, couldn't do anything, I'll show you videos of this, of the way he was. And I have training systems that I use, and I have training structures that I use. I've got specialist coaches in each department. I don't claim to know everything, and I don't know everything. I have a specialist wrestling coach. I have a specialist jiu-jitsu coach. I do this boxing and the Muay Thai. I have specialist conditioning coaches. I'm a qualified conditioning coach, but I just don't have the time to actually babysit them. So I give them all a program that they've got to follow in their own time. But my more senior guys, I've got a conditioning guy, a specialist place that I consult with, and they deal with their conditioning according to the way I want it run. You know, I do things properly because nobody knows everything as much as you think you do. And it's impossible to time-wise. Like, I've got a gym to run, I've got classes to run, I've got fighters to train. Even now at the moment, you know, after spending 8.5 months in Thailand because we got stranded there, I've got to recoup all my I've got to try and make money back. So all my savings, pay my credit cards. So I have to put more time into clients than I would normally, and I'm putting less time into my fighters. So that's also hard, you know. It irritates me every single day because it's the thing that I love the most is training my fighters. But at the moment, I need to, you know, kind of recoup money and pay debts and pay bills.
Correct.
So it makes it harder. But it doesn't take me away from my end goal and what I want to do. So even while I'm training my clients, if my fighters are there, like Kaya comes in and does extra work, I'm always going and I'm just, okay, you need to focus on this, you need to focus on this, do this more. It's something that I'm really excited about, the way I'm doing it. And to be honest, I don't really give a fuck how anybody else does it. They can do whatever they want their way. But I'm trying to do this my way, and well, let's see who does it best at the end of the day. I know my systems work. I know the way we do things work. Every single one of my fighters that fights out of my gym have come from zero skill sets. My Tyrese, who just moved to the UK, he won an MFC title last year at the age of 18, 19. Kaylee won SA champs, African champs. Dan Shill's fighting for Brave. Kaya will have a title soon. Gary won the MFC welterweight title. So all my guys are at a top level, and they came from nothing. They were, you know, it's not like they were come from other gyms and so forth. Every single one of my guys, apart from Dan Schill, started with me. And you know, we've got a good record. I think our record last year before COVID was 28 fights, 26 wins, 2 losses. And that was the one loss was Kaylee losing to the world champ at IMF, and Dan Schill losing the last minute fights at Brave against France and Lambo. So those were our 2 losses, you know, in that period. So we're doing something right, and people can point finger. You know, I don't know. Maybe jealousy makes you nasty. I don't know. But
yes, I think it does.
I've got a small group. I don't have a big fight team. I've had a lot of guys come and train by me, and they all duck. Nobody can keep up the pace. We do 3-4 hours a day, and the guys have normal jobs. But it's intelligent training. You know, not everything's 100%. We do a lot of technical work. We've got good structures.
Well, Clint, sounds like definitely worth a trip down to Durban to come and catch up, bring the camera crews around, come and get some lekker footage of what's going on at the gym. I look forward to that. Thank you for your time. This is not the last time we're going to be chatting. I look forward to the next one. Lots of work to be done. I think the sport needs a lot more development. What you have started, once again, tip my hat to you. Fantastic. More shit like that's got to take place for these younger athletes. And as you can see, you've clearly found a diamond in the rough. I look forward to seeing him hoist the title.
We've got a lot more of those diamonds. We really, you know, the fact that him and his brother's also good. His brother just during COVID had to go find a job. But we have some incredible talent in this place. They just need to be nurtured. They've got to be taught correctly. You know, you've got to have a system in place. You can't just willy-nilly train. You know, at the end of the day, we compete in either Muay Thai, K1, MMA. So you have to train those sports in every single facet of that sport. And if you don't have systems to teach those systems correctly, you don't have specialist coaches in those fields, then you're always going to have a weakness. And in this sport, if you're going to be successful, there's no room for weakness.
Absolutely. Well, Clint, once again, thanks for your time. We will catch up again. I look forward to the next one. But until then, you protect yourself and all those young students of yours at all times. And we'll chat soon.
Stop, Marky.
Thanks, Bye.